So I would like to start by extending the warmest welcome on behalf of Geohazards International, the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute, and all of our participating organizations to this first webinar in a two-part series on the March 28, 2025 magnitude 7.7 Mandalay, Myanmar earthquake. So today's webinar will focus on impacts in Myanmar, and it will be followed next week by a webinar focused on Thailand. That second webinar will be hosted by the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute and held on August 6th in the Americas and August 7th in Asia. We hope you can join us for that one as well. So just briefly, I wanted to introduce our program today and introduce myself. I'm Janice Rogers, and I lead our programs at Geohazards International, which of course are informed by lessons from disasters, so that in the future we can reduce the types of impacts that you're going to hear about today. I also have the honor of representing the Structural Extreme Events Reconnaissance Network as a member of their Seismic Advisory Board and the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute, where I serve as the co-chair of the Public Health Subcommittee of the Learning from Earthquakes Committee. So today we'll just have a brief introduction to start, followed by some presentations from our eminent speakers, who I'm going to introduce more fully in a moment. They are Dr. Susan Huff of the U.S. Geological Survey, U Saw Twe Zaw of the Myanmar Earthquake Clinics and Myanmar Earthquake Committee, Dr. Janine Engelbrecht representing the Geotechnical Extreme Events Reconnaissance Association, and Dr. Ji-Yoon Byun, representing the Earthquake Engineering Field Investigation Team of the Institution of Structural Engineers. And then we will have a live question and answer session. But we do ask, I'll draw your attention to the little blue box on the side of my slides that notes, please use the Q&A button. It's on the bottom bar of your Zoom window. That'll open, if you click that, it'll open a box in which you can type your question. Please use that Q&A function rather than the chat to post questions. We're going to answer some of the questions live in the Q&A period and some in writing during the webinar. And we just like to encourage you, like as the questions come in, come to your mind, go ahead and enter them in the chat. It's okay to do that during the webinar, and it's actually helpful to everybody. So thank you very much for helping us out with that. So today's webinar is really a joint effort. We have observations from the U.S. Geological Survey and Myanmar's Bureau of Meteorology and Hydrology, or Department of Meteorology and Hydrology, excuse me, damage assessments and field studies done by volunteer engineers in Myanmar under the auspices of the Earthquake Clinics and Earthquake Committee. And there was also a joint virtual reconnaissance effort of STEER, GEAR, EERI, EFIT, and Geohazards International with participation from the Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok. We're going to hear a little bit about some of the virtual work this week and from AIT colleagues next week about their field work in Thailand. So that work has been documented in various reports, and we'll be sharing those with you as well. So I'd like to take a minute to briefly introduce three of the organizations that participated in this joint effort. The remaining organizations will be introduced by the presenters that are representing them. So first of all, Geohazards International, we are a global nonprofit organization founded in 1991. Our mission is to save lives by empowering at-risk communities around the world to build resilience ahead of disasters and climate impacts. So clearly, learning from disasters helps us to do this more effectively. We currently have staff and programs in several locations. There's primarily, you can see here on my slide, primarily in the Caribbean and in South Asia. Next, we have the Structural Extreme Events Reconnaissance Network, or STEER, which is a National Science Foundation funded effort to develop capacity in the structural natural hazards engineering community for reliable post-event reconnaissance. And STEER is multi-hazard. considers tornadoes and hurricanes and tsunamis in addition to earthquakes. And the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute is the leading nonprofit membership organization dedicated to advancing earthquake resilience worldwide. Learning from earthquakes is EERI's flagship program, and it's been ongoing since 1973. LFE conducts post-earthquake reconnaissance after major earthquakes and shares data and lessons learned. And LFE is multidisciplinary, so not only the engineering aspects, but also other um, disciplinary interest areas like public health or business resilience. So now I'd like to take a minute and introduce all of our speakers to you. So we are very honored to have Usatwe Zaw. He is the Vice President of the Myanmar Earthquake Committee and the founder of SNA Structural Design. And as such, he's had a key role in conducting research, seismic risk assessments, and risk analysis in Myanmar. And his efforts have been instrumental in the development of Myanmar's National Building Code. And following the March 28th earthquake, he has been deeply involved in the response activities from the technical perspective, including establishing earthquake clinics in Mandalay, Sagaing, Naypyidaw, and Yangon, developing some standards and guidance on retrofit or guidance on repair. And he's currently working on a technical manual for retrofit and also contributing as a volunteer to the restoration and seismic strengthening of earthquake damaged pagodas, heritage buildings, and public use structures. We also have with us today Dr. Susan Huff, who's a seismologist at the United States Geological Survey. Her research interests include earthquake ground motions, historical earthquakes, seismic hazard in the Alpine Himalayan belt and in the Caribbean, and science communication. She currently serves as USGS Earthquake Program Coordinator for South Asia, and between 2012 and 2019, she was the lead USGS Principal Investigator on a partnership project between the USGS and the Myanmar Department of Meteorology and Hydrology, which established Myanmar's National Seismic Network. Next, we have Dr. Janine Engelbrecht, who's the Senior Remote Sensing Specialist and co-lead of the Data Science and Earth Observation Team at BGC Engineering. Dr. Engelbrecht specializes in using satellite data to assess and map and monitor the impacts of natural hazards. For the recent Myanmar earthquake event, Janine contributed to the gear response by applying satellite-based change detection and deformation mapping to support impact assessment and situational awareness. And we also have Dr. Jiun Byun, who is a lecturer in smart, sustainable, and resilience infrastructure at the James Watt School of Engineering, University of Glasgow in the UK. Dr. Byun's research focuses on reliability analysis and reliability-based optimization of structural and infrastructure systems against extreme events. And she's particularly interested in analyzing complex and large-scale systems, including transportation networks and utility systems, which she was able to contribute for some of those systems as part of EFIT's Myanmar earthquake reconnaissance effort. And that was part of the larger virtual effort that I mentioned earlier. So with that, I would like to turn things over to Dr. Susan Huff to go ahead and start the technical part of our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janice. Let me start by sharing my screen. And hopefully everybody will be able to see my presentation. Okay, is everyone able to see my presentation? First question.
Not yet.
Not yet. Oops. Okay, this worked so well in practice. So while I fiddle with that, I thought I shared it. Okay, share. Okay.
Now we're good.
Now we're good. Okay. So, all right, and people can see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So welcome to the participants, Mingalaba. I'd like to start by thanking Janice, GeoHazards, EERI, STEER for organizing this workshop, pulling these these results together. Also, it's an honor to be among the distinguished presenters and to be able to hear their presentations and results. So the U.S. Geological Survey has been involved in Myanmar in two different ways. The second is the one you're probably more familiar with. After a big earthquake, NEIC takes the lead on a suite of products that's released through our website, catalog products from moment tensor and location, but also aftershock forecasts, which I'll mention, preliminary fault rupture mapping, which is important for a number of reasons, including the products for the shake map and pager. There was coordination early on with the Department of Meteorology and Hydrology, in particular on the aftershock forecasts, and I'll mention that. And then USGS is involved with social media, developing a finite fault model. There is an executive page you're probably familiar with where you can find all of these products. My talk is going to focus more on the other aspect of engagement, which has been a USGS DMH partnership that was really between 2012 and 2019. And the focus was on upgrading the National Seismic Network, we provided training with instrumentation and processing analysis and collaborative research. There have been a number of contributors and collaborators over the years, colleagues at the DMH who continue to operate the network. A number of USGS colleagues were part of this project over the years. I'm now working with a SCEC intern who just by chance grew up in Mandalay. And then I'm going to be citing some academic colleagues whose work has been published, and I'll be mentioning that. So the executive page you're probably familiar with, the traditional shake map, which is constrained from predictions given ground motion models and the finite fault rupture. It's constrained by did you feel it intensities that people contribute. I'll talk about that. And it's anchored by the instrumental data that we have, and I'll definitely talk about that. The aftershock forecast is one of the tabs on the executive page. It continues to be updated, and it's interesting to consider. We're into the long tail of the aftershock sequence. The page gives probabilities over 4 different time windows out to a year. And if you ask what are the odds of a magnitude 6 or higher within a year, it's still 22%. And the odds of another 5 or higher are 89%. So the aftershock sequence is still definitely active, and there's definitely still a chance of future damaging aftershocks. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the seismotectonic setting of Myanmar. It's in a very complicated, at a complicated intersection of 3 plates: the Indian plate, Eurasian, and the Sunda plate or microplate. There's a component of right lateral motion that's mostly accommodated by the Sagaing Fault. There's also a component of compression that is giving rise to intermediate depth earthquake. There was a paper in SRL in 2017 that laid out some of the background. Time et al. It shows some of the faults in more detail on the left. In the middle are focal mechanisms from global catalog data. It's color-coded by depth, so you can see the intermediate to deeper earthquakes in red, and then the more shallow earthquakes in green. So very active and complex region, still a lot of detailed questions. The historical earthquakes are shown on the right. I'm not going to talk about them at length, but there have been quite large and damaging earthquakes even through the 20th century. So the recognition of seismic hazard motivated the USGS DMH partnership, which started in 2012. The top priority that we worked on was this network upgrade. There was seismic monitoring in Myanmar previously, but the upgrade established a broadband digital seismic network using cellular data telemetry with a network hub in Naypyidaw. Now, you may have also heard about the seismic recording at Naypyidaw, which captured near field shaking, that formally isn't part of the Myanmar network. I consider it an honorary part of the network. And then this partnership included training and a lot of collaborative analysis and processing. This is Dr. Tun on the right. So the Myanmar network included 5 core stations, broadband digital shown here: Hakka, Temu, Mandalay, Chengtung, which I can never pronounce, and Yangon. The Naypyidaw station is south of Mandalay. It's not on the map. And then by 2019, once the framework of the network was established, the DMH worked with a number of other partners and additional stations were installed. The USGS was not involved with that. The network was up to 10 or 12 stations at one point, very encouragingly. And then geopolitical forces came crashing down. They posed extreme challenges for the DMH and for any future international engagement. So since 2019, it's been a struggle to maintain this network that was built. That said, very encouragingly, we did get recordings of the earthquake from 5 essentially strong motion stations: Naypyidaw, this famous record, Chengtung, Niangyu, which is off to the west, Yangon, and a station in Thailand. And those points anchor in a critical way that the shake map, which is largely constrained from predictions and macroseismic did you feel it intensities. So we have a combination of information that did you feel it intensities were contributed to the USGS system. There's an encouraging amount of information. We have engineering reports, the STEER virtual report, and the results of field surveys is very critical information we're going to hear about in the next talk. So we have these instrumental data. Again, there's triangles on shake maps that show instrumental intensity values. And then one of the questions from this earthquake is the severity of very near fault ground motions. And I'm going to show this famous video several times. You've probably seen it. It's been all over social media. It was captured by a solar firm that has generously made it available to the world. It's remarkable to consider it. So I'm just going to show it. It takes about, I think, 12, 15 seconds to run. So I'm going to let it play first just to let you take it in without a lot of comments, but you can obviously see the shaking come through, the gate opens, and so forth. And people look at this, they don't always appreciate the significance of it, but you're probably aware of it. Oops, no. Okay, stop. I have to actually advance the slides. The fault was actually right through this image. And so when it starts, you see the shaking, but you're also going to see the full fault rupture, which takes place over just a couple of seconds. The entire quadrant, the triangle to the top right, shifts. We're actually watching the fault motion in real time, which is remarkable. It's probably the first time a video like this has been recorded. And then so now, okay, we caught the fault rupture, but what does it tell us about ground motions? So let's look at the built environment. First, if you look at the left, there's a building that Saucer tells me is likely masonry. It's this building's from this firm. And what you see initially is it looks like a water tank falls off the building. The house in the background, which is probably timber, if you look closely, the roof is damaged and it looks like the whole building shifts slightly. So there are those effects. Now, the masonry buildings in the foreground do not collapse. The house does not collapse. And now, the last time, if you look to the right, there's a tower behind the gate. Something flies off of it early on in the video. But then if you look at the transmission tower, after the fault moves, the tower collapses. And then that's probably the most dramatic effect to the built environment. So In terms of near field shaking, what can you say from this video? A water tank collapse, the transmission tower collapsed partially, there was apparent shifting of a timber structure, and so forth. It basically is consistent with modified Mercalli intensity 8, which is severe. It's not catastrophic shaking, interestingly. And it raises the question of shaking effects in the very near field at frequencies that are important for the built environment, which is typically maybe 1 to 10, I'm sorry, a few hertz to 10 to 15 hertz. The NAPIDA record gives us an instrumental constraint. The PGV, peak ground velocity, was quite high. The PGA, you get different values depending on the processing, but it's around 60% G. And so this is it'll be one of the interesting things to look at, is dissecting this NAPIDA record on the left to see what it tells us about ground motions at frequencies of engineering concern. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. It's very much work in progress. But I think if you look at spectrograms of the NAPIDA record, the vertical component and the horizontal component, I think that tells the important story that the vertical component, you have high frequency energy that's persisting through the strong ground motion up at frequencies of 7 to 15 hertz. If you look at the horizontal components, the initial energy for just 2 seconds or so was around 6 to 7 hertz. But when the rupture went through, it was very long period energy. And so small structures just aren't going to be very disturbed by that. They just move. They don't shake in ways that would damage them. So there are results now that are starting to come out, more detailed looks at the finite fault rupture. There's a paper by Yi et al. That came out recently in seismic record. And one of the interesting results was that there was partial super shear rupture that can be seen from back projection analysis, where you form arrays from groups of stations and you can back project, and the panel B, you can, with different arrays, you can watch essentially the rupture front travel down the fault. So there was bilateral rupture. And then to the south, it was sub-shear to a point, and then the results suggest that it went super shear. If you look at that, turn it on its side, there's the back projection isn't always resolving the ends of the rupture, but it shows where the super shear rupture occurred. And what does it mean when earthquakes have super shear rupture? It sounds interesting, but what are the implications? Well, most earthquakes travel, and people probably know this, at rupture speeds of lower than the shear wave velocity in the medium. Super shear rupture is faster than that. And there's a figure here. The expectation is that will enhance the high frequency radiation and the damage potential. And super shear basically means the rupture is traveling faster than the shear waves can get out of the way. And you're developing what's called a Mach cone or a Mach front. But we don't have a lot of observational evidence, either for the super shear rupture or especially for the ground motions. So that's where we have an opportunity to look at the effects of super shear rupture. So to conclude, this was an earthquake with severe shaking, damage, and tragically loss of life. There were some missed opportunities with the monitoring due to geopolitical forces. That said, I think it's still the best recorded major strike slip continental earthquake to date. We have these records, and they're poised to give us important new insights into rupture processes, ground motions, and more. The data are available. The process data are at the Strong Motion Data Center. The results of damage surveys, which are fascinating to consider, are starting to come out, and you'll hear about that in the next talk. And so just to conclude, It's one of the things that struck me working in Myanmar is that it's a country of very rich and still vibrant cultural heritage. Working there, I was impressed by the generosity of spirit from people across all walks of life. It seems fitting that the international community is now coming together, and so that this earthquake, which took such a devastating toll on Myanmar, is going to have important lessons not only for Myanmar, but for the world community. With that, I can stop sharing and go back to Janice.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Huff. We now will hear from the field, from Gustavo off. If you could please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I will share my screen. Yes. Thank you and good evening from Myanmar. I'm going to present about what we have response to the Mandalay earthquake. So this is the earthquake and then the damages of the buildings at the affected area, and then not only the primary damage, we also got some secondary fire, like in the Manly University building, and then the Saint Pan ward of Mandalay. But not very extensive, but we have some those effect as well. So for us, we were actually form the volunteer network of the engineers, and then form as the earthquake clinics to respond to this earthquake. Because of the situation on the ground, we don't want to use as a under the any organization, so we just use as a clinics as a just a new ID, but we use the Myanmar earthquake community network, and then the Federation of Myanmar Engineering Society network for the coordination, and then the other funding arrangements. So we are just volunteers, open source, open data. So we try to work with the any sectors. So the response we had is has a three part. One is the PDRA, post disaster rapid assessment, and then second one is the PDSR, post disaster structural review, and then the third one is the mapping. So for the post disaster rapid assessment, we follow the ADC 20 and then the FEMA P2055 guidelines. So we use the color codes to identify the severity of the damage, and then we also use this color code to link with the repair strategy that we are going to use in the PDSR. So this is the website, because we use the data collection uh, by the mobile phone. So we also use the um, Google do box. So this is the website. All 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 the data uh, uh, we have collected in this web website, and this is the dashboard for the Mandalay area, and this is for the Sagaing area, and then this is for the Naypyidaw area. And we also summarize the uh, the the structural damage pattern according to the building types, like the the reinforced concrete, uh, like the brick masonry buildings that we have several old colonial buildings, as well as the traditional old buildings. Also, we have several brick masonry monuments especially in the Mandalay and Sagaing area. Also, we have some kind of timber gum brick knocking buildings, and also the timber buildings. For the case of timber buildings, we have uh, very severe damages in the inland lake area, because that that inland lake is actually quite far uh, uh, from the epicenter and then the fracture line. But due to the unique location and lifestyle of the community, because they are uh, virtually living on the man-made lake, which is uh, 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 man-made islands, which is quite soft ground, and then um, uh, they used to build with the timber and bamboo houses, which are also quite slender and flexible. So those buildings, we have very extensive damages in in those communities. And we have summarized those data in this PDRA report. And for the PDSR, we use the data based on the PD on the PDRA color code. In this color code, for green is means the few repair, and then we can reuse the building space. And for the orange, we will have the minor repair or major repair. For the major repair, we can use uh, with the general guidelines and general SOP to repair the buildings. But for the major repair and then the retrofit, uh, there should be some special special uh, in uh, um, special review to decide the whether this building uh, can be retrofit or not, and then we can also decide the suitable technique to to retrofit. And normally we have weekly discussions for retrofit on every Wednesday afternoon. And then we have developed and improved the guidelines time to time. For this guideline, we based on the two codes, ASC 41, which is for the existing building, and then the building study before the earthquake, and then the FEMA P2335, which is for the damaged building after the earthquake. So we based on this two document, and then we adopt to our PDRA process, and then we have applied we have adjusted those codes, and then this is the guideline we have come out so far. And next is the damage zone and fault zone maps. For the fault zone, we use the intensity maps, landslide risk, and then the liquefaction risk maps. And we also made several ground verification to the sites, and then based on those data, we made this the damage zone maps. And then for fault zone, we use we study from the other country ranges, and then we are proposing for zone ABC. Zone A is for the 100 feet wide, and for zone B is 600 feet wide, and zone C is for 1 mile wide. And then we also have proposed for the zone A, all the buildings and infrastructures in this zone A has to be reviewed, and then new construction shall be shall be limited if possible, and then the underground utilities, tanks and pipelines shall not be allowed. And for the zone B, only the light construction, and then not the public and essential buildings shall not be allowed. And for zone C, all the building has to be followed strictly to the seismic design code. So with this zone ABC, we propose to use together with the future land use plan for those fault zone areas. And these are some of the major damages we found along the rupture lines, like the Menu Ojan, which is just right in the middle of the rupture line were severely damaged. Also, the old Inwa Bridge was also collapsed. So those kind of major damages are related to this rupture line. And we also found the Mandalay International Airport is quite close to this rupture line. Also, the Navy door, this rupture line passed through to the middle of the city. Also, again, the Navy door airport is also quite close to the rupture line. And we also the control tower of the airport also was damaged during the earthquake. So in conclusion, we have a lot of damages, and then this size of earthquake we have never expected, and then we have so many damages, but we get, I think we get a lot of damage data, and then the scientific information. So we will have more data to improve our seismic resilience activity in the future. So thank you. I will stop here for now.
Thank you so much, sir. That was wonderful. We'd like to go now to Janine Engelbrecht.
Thank you very much. If I don't hear protest, I assume everybody can see my slides. My name is Janine Engelbrecht with BGC Engineering, and today I'm presenting on the GEAR contributions and the geotechnical observations following the Myanmar earthquake event. And so although I'm presenting this work today on behalf of GEAR, this work is really a contribution by a very large number of contributors that I have listed on the screen here, and I'll flash to them again at the end. So the Geotechnical Extreme Events Reconnaissance Association, which I'll just call GEAR after this, is a leader in the rapid response reconnaissance after natural disasters. In this case, after an earthquake, but also after hurricanes, landslides, and so on. The GEAR mission is really to collect perishable geotechnical data as quickly as possible after an event to support new research and knowledge generation. And the way that GEAR goes about this is to deploy multidisciplinary teams to a disaster zone, and working very closely with local experts, they would collect information such as ground failures and infrastructure performance. Now, this kind of information is really gathered to support future risk management practices and advance the geotechnical state of practice to support safer and more resilient infrastructure development projects in the future. Now, GEAR usually deploys the US-based personnel directly to the affected areas, but very often travel is restricted, as was the case with the Myanmar activation. And in this case, GEAR would conduct what they call virtual reconnaissance, which relies very heavily with in-country experts to gather the data. And in this case, it was also supported quite heavily by satellite Earth observation analysis as well. So just looking at the remote sensing imagery that we use for damage assessment, the use of satellite imagery for disaster management and post-disaster response has really increased quite rapidly after the signing of the International Charter for Space and Major Disasters in the year 2000. And the International Charter really has the mandate to task satellites to collect data, satellite images over disaster zones, and to make sure that that data is easily accessible for people that want to use it for disaster response. And in this case, they also have a network of value-added providers that tries to generate information products from the satellite data. So for the Myanmar earthquake, an incredible amount of both public and commercial high-resolution satellite data were captured. And the kinds of information products that were generated from the value-added suppliers include things like displacement maps, damage proxy maps, high-resolution image analysis to identify affected structures, and so on. And in this case, a lot of these products also made its way to public-facing web portals such as Sentinel Asia. On the gear side of things, we also use satellite data extensively for our virtual reconnaissance. One example here that we have on the left-hand side is a damage proxy map that we derived from the European Space Agency Sentinel-1 satellites. We analyzed images before the earthquake as well as images after the earthquake to identify the areas where a lot of changes were observed. And in this case, the red areas highlighted here suggest that very high damages would be present in that zone. And we can see that this red zone corresponds quite strongly with the known location of the Sagaing Fault and also the known location of extensive damages that were observed in the field. We also collected multispectral data to compare vegetation densities before and after the earthquake. This is because we know that very often earthquake events are also associated with landslides. So these coast-seismic landslides would likely result in a loss of vegetation. So these vegetation change maps then could be a proxy to identify where coast-seismic landslides could potentially have taken place as well. And then we also analyzed historical satellite images to map monsoon season inundations. And the intention in this case would be to calculate the monsoon season inundation after this year to see if there's any changes in the areas that are inundated during the monsoon season as a result of the topographic changes that are caused by the earthquake deformation. Now, these regional products are obviously very interesting to try and get a sense of the extent of the damages and potentially affected areas. But where things become really interesting from the gear side of things is for the very detailed geotechnical evaluations. And for that, we ideally need boots on the ground, but in the case of a virtual reconnaissance, we rely heavily on very high resolution satellite images together with photographic evidence collected in the field. Now, for the high resolution data, in this case, we relied on high resolution data provided by Maxar. And this image here on the right-hand side has outlined a few areas that we'll focus on in the rest of this presentation. So the first thing that we looked for was evidence of liquefaction and lateral spreading. Here for the liquefaction, we'll focus on this area too. This is an area where we observed extensive evidence for liquefaction and the associated ejecta. Zooming in here, we digitized in red all of the fissures and cracks that we could observe on the surface of this image. And these are all the fissures that we outlined in red. And zooming in a little bit, we can still see the fissures that we outlined here in red, but we see these white patches, which is the liquefaction-related ejecta that we observe quite prevalently in this area as well. Here in area 3, we observed extensive fissuring, again, as a result of lateral spreading. We zoom in here in an area here on the north side, on the north bank here, and we observe, again, a lot of fissures that we highlighted in red here, but we also observe the evidence for the ejecta, which is these white patches. On the south side, we observe a higher density in these fissures, but less evidence for the ejecta. And in this case, we also have in-field photographic evidence showing extensive damage to the pavement here and the fissuring as a result of the lateral spreading. In area 1, this is the Myopat Road. In this area, we see extensive damage to the pavements in this area. And unfortunately, without the boots on the ground and the direct observations, it's very difficult to know exactly why these pavements failed so dramatically, but very clear that extensive damages to the pavements are happening in this case. So just looking at some of the evidence for surface fault rupture, the image that we have here in the background is just an OpenStreetMaps image on which we overlaid the approximate location of the Sagaing Fault. And in several locations along this fault zone, we observe very characteristic lateral offsets that suggest a strike-slip fault rupture. So just zooming in here in the Mandalay area, this is an urban road where we observe several feet of lateral offset in this area. And then looking here in the south, just south of Naypyidaw, here we have both rural roads and railways that similarly show several feet of lateral offset where these roads cross the fault zone as well. And here, just zooming in on the railways that again show several feet of lateral offset here. And then just a couple of notes on other observations. Earth-retaining structures generally seem to be quite resilient to the earthquake movement with no reports of damages. Unfortunately, because this was purely based on virtual reconnaissance, we don't know how those walls are constructed, if there was some kind of mechanical stabilization, but no reports of damages on earth-retaining structures. And similarly, dams and levees seem to perform fairly well, with only one issue reported at the Synthé Reservoir Dam. And that's the images that we see here on the right-hand side. And then a couple of interesting observations around ground improvement measures and their effectiveness. This image here on the right-hand side shows the approximate location of the Amarapura urban development project called River City. This is an area where it was known that the project site consists of loose to medium density alluvial sands that would be very prone to liquefaction during strong earthquake events. And in recognizing this, the developers worked with a company called Tonkin and Taylor International to design shallow and deep ground improvement options to mitigate against the potential liquefaction risks to that area. In this case, they used a technique called fibroflotation to improve the ground density and the soil stability prior to construction of infrastructure, with the intention to reduce the risks of infrastructure damage due to seismic activity. And in this case, for this road, the Myopat Road, just right next to the infrastructure project, we can see extensive damages here. But on the project site itself, there was very little evidence that we observed for any liquefaction or lateral spreading related damages to this site, which suggests that the ground improvement might be beneficial in this case. So just a couple of comments on the limitations of virtual reconnaissance. In this case, we are missing very critical contextual observations and precise site measurements that allows us to draw very accurate conclusions. We relied very heavily on citizen science, all of the damages that were posted on social media and so on. But in this case, our interpretations really rely on known locations of the Sagaing Fault, and then also on anecdotal evidence that we can collect on the satellite Earth observation data. Despite these limitations, we were able to document widespread ground failures, such as fault ruptures, liquefaction, evidence for lateral spreading, pavement distress, and so on. The earth-retaining structures seem to show good performance, and the limited damages associated with the ground improvement projects highlights potential benefits of ground improvement techniques for future infrastructure construction. And the recommendations then really is that any new developments like dams, roads, rails, and high-rise foundations would need to carefully consider the risks of ground failures in various forms due to the potential for seismic activity in this area. And then just flashing back to the contributors to this work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Engelbrecht. Now we'd like to go to Dr. Ji-Yoon Byun of EFIT.
Thanks, Janice. So hi, I'm Jian. I'm representing Earthquake Engineering Field Investigation Team, which is a joint venture between industry and universities, and we conduct field investigations following major earthquakes. And since our foundation in 1982, we performed more than 50 missions. And so our main objectives are we carry out detailed technical evaluations. We also collect geological and seismographic data, and we assess the effectiveness of earthquake protection methods, and we also study disaster management procedures and socio-economic effects also of our interest. We also carry out other types of activities. So we provide training courses focused on different aspects of post-disaster reconnaissance work. And we also actively include the next generation engineers for training purpose through the mission work. And also we stay embedded with the international post-disaster communities, such as this joint report mission. So we provide various memberships catered for student, full, and corporate members. So if you're interested, please take a look at our website. So in this project, we undertook largely two roles. First is the damage proxy map by using Copernicus satellite imagery, and we also investigated the disruptions in power grid. So first, I will start by damage approximate, which was mostly generated by our colleague Georgiana at TU Delft. And so these maps show this one of the worst affected areas in Naypyidaw and the neighboring Taekun and Yeni. And the redder the color, the more the damage it means. So it indicates. So we can see that there were significant ground displacement, which are likely to have experienced significant structural damages. And these maps compare the neighborhoods that lie in the most affected areas from Mandalay at the north and Naypyidaw at the far south. And we can see that all these areas were heavily affected. And also these critical facilities, the hospitals lie within these damaged areas. And this occurs with our observations on hospital facilities damage, which is also summarized in the section for hospitals in the report. And as for power systems, Myanmar's power systems have been heavily dependent on hydropower. And even before earthquake, it was reported that there have been already prolonged blackouts because of the poor infrastructure. So on the right-hand side are the most affected, those big cities, and also how they are connected by the transmission lines. And on the right-hand side are the hydropower plants around the country for those with capacity greater than 70 megawatts. And we can see that these plants are distributed across the country. And right after the earthquake, electric outages were widespread. So in Mandalay, Mogoke, Unwin, Myametin, and Naypyidaw. And especially in Mandalay and Naypyidaw, it was reported that they faced complete power loss for 2 days and 1 day respectively. So these images show the night laser-like imagery that compares after earthquake to the before earthquake imagery, and we can see there was a significant light loss after the earthquake. And if we compare the light intensity change by number, then the Mandalay and other areas, including Naypyidaw, all experienced light intensity loss more than 80%. And even Yangon, which is located in the far south of Myanmar and was relatively less affected, also experienced 40% of light intensity loss, which shows how the power plants are connected and they can have a cascading effect to downstream areas. And of course, power systems always create cascading effects. So it was reported that water systems have been affected and subsequently raising concerns about health, though fortunately there were no reports on outbreaks around that time. And also unstable electricity together with unstable communications were reported that they hampered the coordination of logistic efforts and affected people's access to support services. For instance, getting emergency goods and also getting psychological help. And as for restoration, it was reported that immediately after the earthquake, hundreds of engineers were dispatched to Mandalay and Naypyidaw. And in Naypyidaw, residents relied on generators and solar power to replace to cover the unstable electricity. However, very little information on restoration is available, though up until 3 weeks after the earthquake, we could find the constant reports on power disruptions. So we expect that at least until that time, power disruptions were still ongoing. And there are other contributors as well. So first, Georgia Giardina at the Delft University of Technology, and Matthew Free and Professor Sean Wilkinson, who contributed to the energy disruption investigation. And thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I would like to just give a big thank you to all of our presenters for sharing these observations with us. And we would like to share some resources with you. Of course, this is a major event. As several of our speakers have mentioned, there's a great deal of information available. It's far more than we can share with you today, and even with the webinar next week as well. We will be making the slides available. There was a question about that in the chat and also the recording. So since you all have registered, there'll be a follow-up email that will have links to that information, and including this slide that I'm showing right now that has links to some of the various resources that different speakers have been mentioning. I've put these in the chat as well so you can have a look at those. And now I'd like to transition us over to our Q&A session. So we're going to start with some live questions. Let me go ahead and turn off this PowerPoint so we can see everybody a little bit better. Okay, so we had a couple of related questions. I'd like to start with for Saucer about health facilities. So the questions were gratitude, first of all, for the informative presentation, but was there any specific assessment on the damages to lifeline buildings, including healthcare facilities or hospitals? And if so, what was the effect on continuity of service delivery for injured people?
Yes, yes, thank you very much. For the hospital, we have assessed almost all the private and government hospital in the Mandalay and Sagaing city. So we have some brief reports out of that one. Also, we have review for the non-government school buildings as well. Because for the government school building, for the case of Mandalay City, I believe Mandalay City Development Committee has done their work. So we concentrate on the private and non-sector sector in informal school. So for those information, I will try to find and send to the database, as well as we will post on our website. Thanks for the question.
Thank you very much. Our second question is for Dr. Sue Huff. It's actually, there are two related questions. So about the super shear rupture. The first is, can you explain the significance for the rupture being super shear? Does it affect how shaking is felt on the ground? And then the related question is if you could comment on the influence of the super shear nature of the rupture on the directionality of near field ground motions. And there's a comment about there's a strong motion station on the southern end of the rupture with very strong polarization in the fault parallel direction as opposed to the fault normal orientation where we would probably expect it from forward directivity. So Sue, if you could take that one.
Yeah, the second, and I should have said more about that in the talk. The second question, I'm not sure which station that is. Assuming it's not Naypyidaw, the only station I know of to the south is Yangon, which is well below the extent of the rupture. So and I'm not sure about the direction of shaking. Simple theories of rupture predict that earthquake ruptures should travel at something like 80% of the shear wave velocity in the medium. If the rupture travels at super shear speeds, it's traveling faster than the shaking can get out of the way. So you basically get a mock front. And the expectation is that shaking could be very severe in that case. The thing is, we don't have a lot of good observations that really convincingly show super shear rupture. There are some now. This is another example. And we have fewer examples of actual ground motion recordings. So this earthquake is going to be an important opportunity to compare what we know about the rupture with what we can say about the ground motions. And that work is really just getting started.
All right, thank you very much. Now we are going to go back to saucer. There is a question about Dr. Shaw, can you explain your recovery plan and how you're going to involve community in the recovery process?
Yes, our recovery plan is actually we work with all the sectors, including the community and the NGO, INGOs, and then the authority as well. So for the urban institutions and buildings, the most of those sectors are taken care by the government, and then for the hospitals and schools, those critical public facilities, both INGO and NGOs and well wishers are supported. And for the private and small buildings, we try to care with the typical basic repair guidelines, and then we are responding the individual cases by the individual request. So the up to now for the design and those site visit and things, we try to do as a volunteer free of charge. But if we have to spend for the traveling and small expenses, we try to minimize the costs and not to overburden to the individual victim. So we try to go with the we try to cover, but the extent of damage and needs are huge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, let's see. I want to go back to Dr. There's a question about, were there any reports of damages to the seismic stations themselves or reports of network disruption?
There were definitely early network disruptions. I don't remember, it may have taken, there may have been some delay in the transmission of the data. There was the Naypyidaw instrument is in a building outside of the DMH office. There was some damage to the roof, apparently, or the roof or the ceiling. I wasn't sure. And there is some concern that that may have contaminated probably the vertical signal. It wasn't a full collapse. The other stations, Yangon is in a WWSSN era vault. Chengtong is in a very sturdy structure, so there weren't any issues at the other stations. There is a paper, so the Naypyidaw record has a couple of issues, the timing, the GPS timing had some issues and then the processing of that record. There's a paper that the GFZ team has submitted, or I don't know if it's published yet. It's available online as a preprint, and it goes into that record in some detail.
Right, thanks very much. Now, let's go. There's a question about software tools for damage proxy maps. I don't know, Janine, if you wanted to take that. Which software tools are commonly used to generate damage proxy maps after acquiring data from Sentinel-1?
Yes, sure. So for the damage proxy map that we calculated, we had two SAR images before the earthquake, and we calculated the interferometric coherence using a free Python library called ISCE2. And then we also used one cross earthquake pair, so one image before the earthquake and one image after the earthquake to calculate the coherence for that one as well. And then it's just a simple differencing to identify the areas that that experience a substantial amount of change, which would result in a big change in the coherence between the pre and post earthquake pairs. But so in this case we used Python, but there are an assortment of freely available software tools. The European Space Agency has a software package called SNAP, which is designed specifically for working with Sentinel data, and it's got a good graphical user interface and lots of tutorials if one wanted to calculate those for yourself as well.
Thank you. There are a couple of related questions on service disruption. June, if you are willing to take those. The first is, what is the extent of damage in terms of monetary value, considering the disruption of critical services for days, for example, from the recent presentation on power service disruption, and a related question on how many days the water system was affected, if you have any information on that.
Right. Thank you for the question. So as for monetary estimate of the infrastructure disruptions, for some reason I couldn't find any specific information. Do you know any information on this?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything either, but if anybody has.
Right. So yeah, and as for water systems, they have been known for not been restored until now. So it seems the water systems are the last problem that that have been lost until since the earthquake, though other infrastructure systems are now somehow back in their shape. And this is quite interesting because in the last earthquake in Turkey, water systems were the last one to be repaired. So it seems like somehow water systems are always a problem. And it is not because of they're dependent on power systems, but rather their internal problems with for some reason people are still getting contaminated water in the worst affected areas. And so then the following concerns are always health, but fortunately until now there were no reported outbreaks.
Right, thank you very much. We now are going to go back to Saucer. We have a set of related questions. First question is, the PDRA you did covered all the buildings in the area, or was it a sample only? The second question that's related is, how did the PDRA and PDSA, how were those linked with post-earthquake recovery and reconstruction, and are the data used for reconstruction support? And the third related question is, how is the PDRA was considered by the people or communities and the authorities, and how was it used in response? For example, are the data used for immediate occupancy or for other policy developments?
Yes. For the PDRA data, we based on the ADC 20 guideline, and then we use in the Global toolbox. So we basically work with the volunteer engineers with some kind of online training with the mobile app. So the coverage is actually we are not covering the 100%, but we cover most of the I can say about 80%, because the some of the area we also have the network and internet problems. So some of the location and data inputs were not correct. Our data may not be the perfect, and I'm sure far from perfect, but they are. I can guarantee they are genuine, and then they are. Yeah, we also try to keep that data for the future use for the research and for students to work on it. And another next question is the relationship between the PDRA and then the structural review. So when we do the PDRA, we specially addressed to the structural members. So with the minor structural repair or the major structural repair, we try to to disseminate from the early phases, because we also intended to use those data related to the structural repair works. So that's how we are related between the PDRA and PDSR. Also, the PDRA rating also, we started with the volunteer and then the ad hoc online training. The judgments are quite quite different with one another. So we made the on-site as well as several Zoom training to get the uniform judgment as close as possible. So and then the use of the PDRA and PDSR. We also advocate those data to the authority, and so for the PDRA, we work with the. We also work with the city development committees and to organize their follow-up action. So we have several actors collecting data from their own format, but I think in the after about 2 months, we have managed to get the uniform use and interpretation of those damage data. So I think I'm not sure I covered those three questions. If something is still missing, please let me know.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We are going to come back to you for another question. This one is about when you recommended stricter land use regulation in fault zones, does that also mean relocation of infrastructure or development in safer zones? If so, does the government of Myanmar provide land for reconstruction?
Yes, this is not this is still in the conceptual and recommendation stage. Also, we are also finding that the rupture lines we are using is a little bit some area the ground rupture, and then those the line we have used are not not the same. So we also have to we are trying to solve those things. Maybe we will be proposing a little bit wider for zone A. So, but this is the just the idea, concept, and proposal. We aim for the to the authority for the land use planning, and then the long-term mitigation of those fault zone area. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, let's go to Janine now for this question on buildings and infrastructure in soft soil conditions are highly vulnerable during earthquakes. What are the recommendations to reinforce such facilities besides relocation?
Yes, and so in this case, unfortunately, I don't have the answer to this question specifically. In terms of the ground improvement work that was done, that was actually prior to construction, so it's not a reinforcement that they were doing. It was just using the vibro flotation method to densify the soils and make it stable before construction even happens. So maybe this is something that we can follow up on at a later stage. Unfortunately, I don't know how to answer that.
Yes, can I?
Yes, please.
Yes. And to my experience for the Mandalay and Amarapura case, we found several liquefaction and ground failure near the riverbank. But the fortunate thing is we don't have much tall and high-rise buildings along that area, because they are like the old cities and old towns. So most of the buildings are two, 3-story high. So we found a couple of tilted buildings, but not very extensively damaged, widely damaged ward and communities there. So yeah. So for the I think for relocation and those things are the it's on the on the authority hand. But I think with this not very widely damaged and damaged building in those riverbank bank area. That issue we have, but not how to say, not very difficult. Sorry, it's yeah, we have to the authority has to deal, but not very huge or huge one, I think. Thank you.
I would like to ask one final question of Saucer, and that is, what are the lessons learned from this earthquake to be applied in future events?
Yes, thank you very much. So what we have found is Mandalay is likely not very much tall building yet, unlike in the Yangon, not like in Bangkok. So we have mostly the low-rise and mid-rise building, and what we have found is if we have about 5, 6 and tall buildings in Mandalay, they don't have the major problems. They have some minor defects. So what it is shown for the Mandalay experience is that if we follow the building codes, that we have the national building code in 2020, but we started to apply since the about 2003 or 4 for the seismic design for the tall buildings. So if we follow the building codes and seismic design, the buildings are quite okay. We may have some minor damages, but it's not far from the life safety level. So that's the lesson we have learned. And then for the public building for the private and small building, we most of the damages are the old masonry buildings. So they are buildings were heavy, old, and about two to three story with the flexible timber floors. And those buildings were badly damaged. Also, because Mandalay and Inwa Sagaing are the old cities, so we have a lot of old masonry monuments. They were also badly damaged, like the Mahamyamuni and then the Sung Ponyashin. Those kind of famous monuments were also damaged. So those are the lesson we have learned. So for those old masonry buildings, so we have to find ways to how to make them resilient to this giant earthquake that in the future they will also come. So we have some technique we use in the Bagan, but the damage we have found in Mandalay and Sagaing are much larger. So we have to find more stringent strengthening techniques for this area. Thank you.
One of the first questions that we have is for Saucer. So we have a question about the mapping. If you could comment on the mapping of the damage suffered by the heritage structures.
Yes, we for the heritage structures, the Department of Archaeological and and culture has done the damage mapping for those historic buildings. We also have some individual teams done for the religious building separately. So for us, we have some data, but not much emphasized for those historic building point of view. Yes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Sue, we had a question for you as well, Susan Huff. This was a question about what your thoughts are on large earthquakes on the neighboring segments of the plate boundary. To the south would appear to be a gap between this event and the 2004 Indian Ocean event, and to the north, the Indian plate. So it bends around and there are many potential events. What are your thoughts? So I'm a seismologist. I worry about future large earthquakes on any active plate boundary. Yeah, looking at a map, there is a gap between Mandalay and the Sumatra earthquakes. It seems like the Andaman region has had a number of moderate earthquakes. And so that's going to be a concern. And the Sagaing Fault continues south, close to Yangon. If it's going to produce large earthquakes with large peak ground velocities, they can potentially impact taller structures more than these small buildings. Yangon does have high rises, and it sits on delta sediments. So there's long been concern for seismic hazard throughout Myanmar, and it's great to hear the lessons from this event being translated into improved practices. Wonderful. Thank you, Susan. Okay, and now I'm going to go back to a question for Saw, sir. We have it's a question. It's actually a combination of two questions that we wanted to ask. And it's, are there any existing building codes based on ground conditions or geological assessments in Myanmar? And can you also talk about building codes in Myanmar for seismic design and construction practice? What's the current state?
Yes, we have Myanmar National Building Codes. We started to use in 2020, but actually we applied seismic design for high-rise buildings since 2003, I think. Yes, so for the building code, we have recently updated for the 2025 version. So the codes are basically follow the IBC 2006 codes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So the next question we have, and others, if you have other questions, please feel free to add them. So the next question we have is for Susan Huff again, Dr. Huff. And that one is, given that this was one of the longest historical strike slip ruptures in continental crust, what is the current best estimate of rupture length and average fault displacement? Yeah, so it was notable that the rupture was over 460 kilometers. It's not unprecedented. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake, estimated 7.7 to 7.9, that was over 400 kilometers. So these major strike slip through going faults, results indicate they can host very long ruptures. That I've seen, it's not, if you plot the point on plots from scaling relationships, it's unusual, but it doesn't really change our understanding. Now, the nature of the rupture, was it super shear and what did it mean for ground motions? I think we stand to learn a lot of important lessons from the data that we have.
We have another question for Saucer. You showed a table with some data, and the question was, what does stakeholder mean in this table? Is it indicating who performed the damage rating or category assessment?
Yes, actually, that table meant for the uh, for the organizations involved in the repair and retrofitting. So basically authority, the engineers and owners. That what I want to mean. Sorry for the confusing word as a stakeholder.
And we have another question coming in for you, sir.
Yes.
The question is, did you work on or develop any guidelines or code for retrofitting vernacular buildings?
Vernacular buildings is not yet. We just drafted for the reinforced concrete. But what we did for the vernacular buildings like brick knocking and timber and all masonry buildings, we have produced the simple guideline how to repair them, but not really retrofitting design or those kind of things, not yet. And also we also have some SOP and standard operating procedures developed by the respected authority, like for the masonry pagodas, the ministry, the concerned ministry have their own SOP, and for the normal buildings, the Ministry of Construction has issued their SOP. Yes, they are not very complete, but at least we can find some ways to work on.
Thank you very much. We have a question for Dr. Engelbrecht, and perhaps for more than one person, but this question is, are there any maps showing soil shear wave velocities in Myanmar? If not, could a soil shear wave velocity map of public buildings be considered, say, schools, hospitals, etc.? It could be inexpensively and rapidly accomplished. Okay, so perhaps, does someone else want to take that question?
I believe work along those lines to do shallow site characterization was ongoing, going back to 2017 to 2019. I don't have references to site off the top of my head, and I don't know, maybe Saucer is aware of any systematic surveying efforts.
Sorry, I missed the question.
Let me repeat. Are
Yes.
there any maps showing soil shear wave velocities in Myanmar? And if not, could one be developed? particularly for important public buildings?
Yes, we have some academic studies, but we don't have the published and the maps uh, 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 for the public use for the design, especially for the shear wave velocity. We only have the the hazard map for for seismic design.
So for the Myanmar stations, the Time et al. Publication that I referenced, 2017, we did look at a little bit at the site characterization and the noise level. So some information is available for those
Yes.
instrumental sites.
Yeah.
Okay. We have another question for Saucer regarding how easy is it? The question is, how easy is it to make the building code be applied by actors, and what have you done to help people follow the code?
Yes, actually, the building code enforcement is a big issue here, because the code itself is not the mandatory yet for the mid-rise and low-rise building. But I believe this earthquake and then this uh, the damages boost a lot for the people to follow the seismic code, because uh, to my experience for the Mandalay case, the buildings follow the existing building codes are quite uh, uh, are doing quite well. They may only have the minor damages, which are easy to easy to repair. So those are the good points to show, to convince the people to follow the code.
All right, thank you very much. We have some more questions for Saucer. The first one is there any evidence of torsional effects in this earthquake? Presumably that's referring to structures.
Yes, if faulty torsional, we found several cases uh, in the in the historic monuments, especially if the building have the uh, plan uh, plan plan irregularity uh, due to uh, previous damages. So those kind of buildings were have suffer much more in this shaking. So those are, yes, it depends on the case by case, and then the shape and shape and geometry uh, of the buildings. Yes, yeah, we found several cases.
Okay, thank you. The second question is related to traditional building systems, and particularly if there are earthquake-resistant types of traditional construction, say timber and masonry combinations, and how that, if there are observations on that type of construction, and what you might be able to say about that.
Yes, we in Mandalay and the Sagaing area, we have several uh, brick knock-in building. That is, we use timber frame and then fill with the brick walls. So those buildings were actually uh, uh, quite doing well. We only find some uh, some easy to repair damages. But in Sagaing area, those brick knocking buildings were also damaged more. I think due to the because the buildings in Sagaing are older and less 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 maintained, so that contribute to the more damage scenario. I think in the Sagaing area. In short, the brick knocking buildings are quite doing well in this earthquake compared to the reinforced concrete buildings.
If I could jump in briefly, I'm wondering, the audience may not be aware of Myanmar's history, and notably Yangon was the capital for a long time. It's a larger city, and I shouldn't be speaking for Myanmar history
Yes.
with Dr. Saucer here, but people may not know Naypyidaw was a planned city. The government at the time, I believe it was in the 90s, decided to move the capital. Unfortunately, they moved it very close to the Sagaing Fault, but it is a much newer city. So it's quite modern construction, a lot of concrete, I believe reinforced, whereas Yangon is very different.
Yes, correct. Thank you.
I didn't say anything wrong.
Okay, we have another question for Dr. Engelbrecht. This question is, did I understand it right that liquefaction was identified in remote sensing images through physical manifestations, e.g. sand ejecta, and not through indices and the likes of NDVI, for example? If yes, in addition to sand ejecta, are there other manifestations you are looking for?
Yes, so we did look at various indices, including the normalized difference vegetation indices, and specifically the change in vegetation indices pre and post earthquake event. We also got some of the publicly available disturbance products that are distributed by NASA and the Jet Propulsion Lab. It's called Opera. They've got a vegetation and a general disturbance product. The big limitation with these is that they're fairly coarse resolution, and so for these more subtle ejector features that are associated with the cracking could very easily be missed. So in this case, on the high resolution data, we used it for the detailed mapping, but the coarser resolution products can be used to guide us to look where to look on the high resolution products for more detailed mapping as well.
Right, thank you very much, Dr. Engelbrecht. We have another question for Saucer. And this is, I understand the Myanmar seismic code follows IBC. If that is so, how do you determine the site class for any specific site or construction project? Is the owner, designer, foundation engineer tasked with providing this information based on geotechnical information?
Yes, normally we have to do the geotechnical report. At least the 100 feet and depth of the soil data has to be investigated, and according to the hardness and softness of the soil type, we have to there's a classification from the as, let's say, SCDE, yeah, those range, yeah, we have to identify before doing the structural design.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
We have another kind of a question and a comment related to the importance of video to complement other information. And the question is, are there more videos besides the one showing the fault rupture? And Dr. Huck, could you please speak to that?
I'm not aware of any. I be poised in just the right direction, and so this is the first one that I'm aware of that actually caught the rupture in action. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's something that people could think about. I'm not aware if efforts are going on, for example, along the San Andreas or other known large strike slip fault system. There is a paper that is, I believe it's published, looking at that video and dissecting some of the interesting details that you can see in it. And maybe Saucer is aware of more.
Yes, I found another one or two good videos that capture the movement, the shift of the rupture. But I was trying to find that those video, but not successful yet, because we have so many photos and videos, and we save in different places. But definitely we will try to find those photos and videos. Yeah, I remember one of the office, big office in Naypyidaw. They have surveillance video camera, and then that they are building apron, and that building was shifted about I think 2 to 3 meters. That was also captured.
It would be fantastic to track those down and make them available.
Yes.
I'd like to also add there are some interesting videos of collapses occurring of buildings that are more interesting perhaps for structural engineers, and also some post-event damage kind of reconnaissance videos that are available. Some of those are in the STEER media repository, which we can share with you when we share the slides. And there are, of course, on the internet, a number of videos that of collapses. I do have, there's one more question that I'd like to be able to take live. And this is again for Saucer. Is it possible to share any assessment tools for damaged infrastructure, as well as any retrofitting design materials used for Myanmar rehabilitation, or repair, or retrofit? I understand that the Myanmar earthquake clinics are developing quite a bit and have developed quite a bit of material. So if you could speak to that a bit, sir, that would be great.
Yes, we have put most of our material in the website that we have included in this presentation. So you may be able to find those. We have uh, the collected data, which is location, attribute of the building types, and then the damage photo and damage extent and ratings are all in the in that database. Also the uh, PDRA summary, and then the retrofit guidelines for reinforced concrete building are also uh, uh, host on that website.
Thank you all very, very much. Thank you, panelists, for your insights and observations. Thank you, everyone, for your insightful questions. We really appreciate all of you staying with us for a little over the 90 minutes. So thank you again. And we hope that you will join us next week for the second in this webinar series with impacts in Thailand and engineering implications. So with that, I would like to thank everyone again, and have a good rest of your day or evening, wherever you may be. Thank you very much. Take care.